Welcome to the Intellectual Conversations with the Gigantic Intellect. This afternoon, I want to venture my thoughts in relation to a matter affecting the South African Education Department. A month ago, we have learned about the story affecting the South African Education Department in regards to budget constraints. A most prominent story relates to the Western Cape Department deciding to retrench 2,400 educators in the province. That is something that has triggered a lot of people, and it has been a story that people have been discussing about ever since. And I've gathered facts trying to understand this particular story so that I can explain it to you. What are my thoughts in relation to this particular conundrum that is facing our government? Treasury was experiencing budget deficit. Budget deficit means that the South African Revenue Service could not collect enough money to cover activities that are ongoing in the South African government. That is the reason Treasury experienced this budget deficit, meaning that they did not have enough money to cover all the expenses of the country. I've read the statement from the Ministry of Education, Siviwe Gwarube, statement from Treasury, statement from the education portfolio in Parliament, and variety of articles that was written about this particular story, trying to understand what could have led to this particular budget deficits. And one of the things that I've discovered is that the economy for the last 10 years, as reported by Treasury, have not been growing. And as a result, SARS could not collect enough money to cover or to sponsor the activities of government. Number two, the Ministry of Education announced that 331 billion was lost to bailouts, meaning that an amount of 331 billion was given to SOEs, state-owned companies that were struggling. This includes companies such as Eskom, Transnet, Denel, SABC, SAPO, and so forth. Those are the companies that are owned by government, meaning that those companies could not generate enough money to run themselves. And as a result of that, they went to their father, which is the shareholder, the government, to request 331 billion so that they can be able to manage their operations. And the third factor that contributed to this particular matter is the 1.5 trillion that was lost to corruption for the last 10 years. So the figures that I'm mentioning are of a period of 10 years from 2013 to 2023. 331 billion that was lost to bailouts was from 2013 to 2023. 1.5 trillion that was lost to corruption was also from 2013 to 2023. Ridiculous. 1.5 trillion lost to corruption. That's a huge amount of money. A money that could have been directed to a variety of departments, an amount that could have, in fact, helped so many departments to operate efficiently. 331 billion. I want to venture my thoughts in relation to this particular money that was lost to bailouts. DA has been arguing this fact, has been arguing the fact that it is not sustainable to give these government companies monies, to give these government companies bailouts, and this is going to affect variety of department, and government did not listen to this. In fact, government did not listen to this, and I also understand why they did not listen to this particular complaint by the DA of bailouts, of excessive bailouts that are given to these state-owned companies. Number one of the reasons why government find itself in this particular conundrum is the fact that they've gotten themselves in a situation where SOEs are not able to run themselves. And as a result of this, they become dependent on government. And this particular fact is not sustainable. And also government cannot afford to reverse these bailouts because these companies hire a lot of people. And if government cannot give them bailouts, meaning that many people are going to lose their jobs. That is the position that the government has gotten itself into. Again, DA is correct with its logic that it's not sustainable to give these people bailouts. And I do agree with the people that are saying we must get these state-owned companies making profit. These companies must be able to run themselves. They must make profit so that they can be able to sustain themselves, because it is not sustainable for government to give them money. Because when government gives them money, we will have the result that we're having now, where provincial departments are going to be forced to reduce employees or to reduce educators. 1.5 trillion lost to corruption. Monies that could have been injected or given to deserving department have been taken by few politically connected people. Cyril came in 2017 with the agenda to fight corruption. But up to this day, he has not won the fight against corruption. In fact, corruption is winning the fight against Cyril. I'm not even sure whether Cyril is fighting corruption or not, because the people that are doing corruption are his comrades. Let me move from that point. Number 2, who take accountability for this particular mess that was created by the ANC government? The people that have always been taking accountability for the misgovernance of politicians and government officials have always been the poor and the marginalized people, the middle class and the marginalized people. Those are the people that are going to be affected. When a politician makes poor decision in government and it results in a situation where Treasury has to do adjustment in the budget, the people that are going to be affected, that are going to take responsibility for the poor decision taken by the politician, are the employees employed by the government. Unfortunately, when a politician makes a mistake, who's going to pay for that particular mess? The employees that are employed by the government, the taxpayers. Let me address again this other point. What should happen to SOEs? What should happen to SOEs? The reality is, giving bailouts to SOEs is not sustainable. That is the reality. And we have to take uncomfortable decisions to mitigate this reality. Because if we continue this way, the South African government is going to collapse and so many people are going to lose jobs. Because the money that is given to SOEs, it is the very same money that could have been used for other important things in government. So it's not sustainable to give these companies money. Of course, people are against privatization. I also do understand why they are against privatization, because privatization means that services are now going to be expensive. But the question is, do we have a choice? We are trying to avoid the problem in the short run. But the very same problem is going to affect us in the long run. And the consequences are going to be very dire and severe. We're going to suffer severe consequences for the decision that we are making now. We are already suffering those consequences because teachers in the Western Cape have lost their jobs. So whether we privatize or we decide to do what, but the reality is we must make sure that these state-owned companies are able to run themselves without relying on the government. And if they cannot run themselves, then they must be handed to the private players to run them. Because if you say, no, services are going to be expensive, but the monies that you're giving these SOEs for bailouts are also going to lose so many people jobs. So either way, we're going to suffer. What we need to do is to make sure that these companies are able to make profit so that they can be able to run themselves without relying on the government. And if the government fails to run these things, they must be handed to the private players. Because one thing that you realize is anything that the government touches collapses. Dinel. Not all governments. I'm talking about specifically the South African government. Anything that it touches collapse. Dinel, SABC, SAA, Eskom, Transnet, South African Post Office, Mango, variety of companies that are run by the government. Majority of them collapse. The reality is government is not a good runner of companies. That is the reality. That is our reality. And if we are in denial about this fact, then we are headed for a societal collapse where so many people are going to lose their jobs if we don't fix this particular mess. Because now we've created a culture where government is unable to reverse the decision that they've taken. Because if they stop giving these companies bailouts, these companies are going to collapse and people are going to lose jobs. Imagine, people never calculated this. They never saw this coming. Never saw it coming. They are now shaking because they've been a mess. These guys have been a mess and they've destroyed our country. And we need to reclaim our country from these bastards. What is the impact of this? Short term, if we don't deal with corruption, and corruption is something that is undefeatable in South Africa because the guy came in 2017 with the agenda to clean out, to fight against corruption. But he is the very same guy that accuses ANC as the number one enemy in relation to corruption, meaning that majority of the corruption that happens in government, according to the leader of the ANC, it is caused by ANC comrades. That is Cyril. That's not me. It is Cyril. He says ANC is the number one perpetrator of corruption, is the accused number one. That is the president that's saying this. It's not me. So the impact of this, if they don't deal with this, the reality is in the next coming future, we're going to lose jobs. And let me talk about the impact of these budget cuts in the education department. The people that are going to be affected is the teachers. Remember, there's people that are delivering books in the education department. And there's people working for those people, meaning that these job cuts or these budget deficits are not only going to affect the teachers, they are going to affect the people who are delivering the books at school, the people who are delivering foods at school, the people who are transporting learners at school. So many people are going to be affected. So many people. And remember that these people that are working for government, they were supporting certain businesses, meaning that even those certain businesses are going to lose money. And when those businesses no longer get that money, they are going to be forced to retrench. Meaning that this is going to affect so many people. It's a crisis. It's a crisis that ANC has caused. ANC has gotten us in this mess. And it's up to us to get ourselves out of this mess. Because these budget deficits are going to have severe impact on our economy. So many people are going to lose jobs. Not only in government, because the people that are working in government also support certain businesses. Meaning that if they stop working, certain businesses are going to lose money. And when those businesses lose money, they retrench people. Unfortunately, we are in a mess. Sisekakeni bafethu. Sisekakeni. And we are going to feel the skak. We are going to be the one that is going to account for this mess. We are the one. We are not the one that made these decisions, but we are the one that are going to suffer the consequences. Unfortunately, politician, central planning, central government. I was a proponent and an advocate of government owning things, but recently I've changed my position. Government is not a good business person. Is not a good runner of things. Of course, other governments are capable, but our government is not a good runner of things, good operator of things, because we are in this mess because of the decisions that were taken by the government, because of the monies that were stolen by people that are working for the government, the politician. We are in a mess. This is the gigantic intellect. Know the self and remember your ancestors. Peace.